Hey there, and we're using a status build today. It's all focused in on fire, but honestly, you don't have to use fire. It could be whatever status effect you really want, because the big effect we're getting here is slow. And the slow can happen with any of them. That's thanks to the wired inhibitor. Applying a negative status effect on an enemy also applies slow for 1 second. Now, if you apply or refresh any more, it's the same status effects, whatever, you can extend that slow duration up to 5 seconds. And I just liked the idea of catching guys on fire and then watching them be really slow while burning. That sounds pretty psychotic, you know, as I say it out loud, but it is really satisfying, right? Because they're just like, look how slow they go. And we've got the Ritualist as our primary archetype, and that spread that, you know, from the prime perk of the Ritualist also applies to slow, because that's how you're getting that conditions onto them. You know, they're getting a status effect on them. It's really fun. I really enjoy it. And because, you know, I've leaned into fire, I've chosen just a bunch of fire items via the, you know, sun talisman or talisman of the sun, the firestone, etc. I ended up putting the red ring of death, but that's kind of a new one too. And look how, you know, just multiple spreads, they're slowed down. And because we're kind of applying like typically like 2 to 3 status effects immediately, we're getting at least, you know, like 2 seconds, if not like 3 of slow on the guys. And then we throw down a Witchfire, and look how they just, oh, they walk into it and they're slowed, and they can't do anything about it. It's so satisfying. And I was actually using Heat Wave with it earlier. That was super satisfying, because Heat Wave, if you're not familiar, is a big aura. We're going to get grabbed. Yep. It's a big aura that, as enemies linger in it for 3 seconds, they catch on fire and take a bunch of damage, and it refreshes like constantly. So it's just a big slow aura. It takes a long time for it to like really kick in, which is very frustrating, but it does a lot of fire damage, and it's just a constant aura of slow. Now, what we can do against this guy too is we also have on the Hellfire as our handgun. And so what we're going to end up doing, I'll just pop a shield to be safe, and then, oh, wrong gun. Oh, slow, whoop, whoop. And that constant flamethrower ends up, you know, just constantly refreshing the flames. I'm going to go ahead and use this now to just to heal up real quick, because I can. And can he escape in time? No, he can't. So the slow effect, I mean, slow is really strong. And that wired inhibitor really allows you to just have a lot more access to it, which trivializes all your trash guys, all your elites. It's not going to be much help against bosses. Now, when I say not much help, that means the slow itself isn't actively going to like do anything. Instead, it's going to like enable a couple of other effects, maybe. Like you could use things, and actually I have to double check this, but with like that Ahadnai crystal, you know, for every negative status effect on the enemy, allows you to get bonus damage on them. I actually can't remember if the slow counts, but with like the Fragrant Thorn requires 3-4 unique status effects on the enemies. Let's double check. 4 or more unique negative status effects on the target will then apply exposed to them. Well, slow counts as one of those, which is great, because some enemies are immune to certain status effects, you know, like Dullahan is immune to corrosion. So like if you're not able to apply corrosive, overloaded, burning, and bleed to an enemy, you know, sometimes you just can't get that forced status effect. Well, slow counts. So with that, you can end up applying 3 different status effects in a single shot of the Sparkfire. And actually, technically, you could probably get all 4, right? So we got Sparkfire, which baseline does fire damage. You could throw on, you know, not Hotshot, but, you know, say Overflow onto it. So now we've got a mod that'll let us do lightning. And then we put on Twisting Wounds. And then we've got 3 status effects right there, right? Fire, lightning, and bleed. And then, because we're applying a status effect, it's going to also apply slow, right? So immediately, you're going to have 4 status effects on an enemy to also apply exposed on them, increasing all their damage taken by another 15%. Now, it's pretty niche, because it's going to require you, I say niche, it's going to be pretty, like, not consistent, because you have to activate the mod in order to make that happen. But at the same time, you could end up with, you know, 3 status effects on a guy from a single use. And the same thing with like your melee attacks, right? I mean, I have the Smolder on right now, but if you went ahead and you put on, Krellax with Tainted Blade, suddenly you've got Overloaded, Corrosion, and Slow on the guy, which is pretty fantastic. I really like that. Now, I was doing this whole setup I was also using a new amulet as well. It was the, whatchamacallit? Timekeeper's Forfeit, but I think I'm just going to do a whole separate thing about that because there's a lot of, things about that one that I'm like, I don't know. It's iffy. But this setup, using the slow with that wired inhibitor, is fun. It's relatively easy to pull off because all you need is that ring and status effects, and then you're golden, right? But getting the ring itself is kind of a pain in the butt because it requires you to complete the Dark Horizons DLC. You then have to, have completed Sparks quest line. Then you got to go back to Naruto, get the right event, get, all the materials, and then craft the ring. So it's kind of a pain. But once it's accessed, once you have the access to it, making it do things is pretty easy, especially if you, then also mix in the Ritualist. I mean, the Ritualist itself with any status effects is just top tier. It's basically a build on its own, especially when you add in the Spark Fire Shotgun. We're not going to do that. We don't need it. I do really like this thing you can do with it too, right? With the Hellfire in particular, and you should be able to do it with the Nebula as well. You put fire on the ground, and then when enemies come walking towards you, any moment now, there you go, they walk into a pool of fire, just like when you're using Witchfire. It's just a little built-in Witchfire with the Hellfire. It's really satisfying. And I mean, once you lean into enough of the fire damage increase, the enemies, I mean, what are they going to be able to do? They can't do anything. They're slowed and they're burning. What else is there to say? Here's, the, Heat Wave. Look at those numbers. It does a lot of fire damage, and so if you can get it to proc and work, and then especially you spread it with the Ritualist, I mean, they're done. And see how long it takes though? That should have gotten him way earlier, I would say. It says 3 seconds, right? 3 seconds. Yep, begin burning. Oh no, an elite. Let's do a little puddle right here, and then he walks into it. Oh no. Oh, and now he's slowed some more. No thanks. Do a little puddle on the ground. Let's make it a little trail. Some sticky flames. Some more deep rock action going on, right? Sticky flames. There he goes. That's fun. I mean, shoot, you could do this with Engineer too, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Pull out the flamethrower with that one. Have it be applying slow effects to him. I actually need to check with the dog. I don't think the dog's bleed will count for it. Simply because it doesn't count for the Fragrant Thorns. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I just checked with Zahanai Crystal. The slow does count as one of the status effects, so that's pretty solid. So with that being said, right, we're going against this boss. The wired inhibitor, I don't think is going to do us anything. Some bosses are weird because they are affected by slow effects like the Primogenitor bug guy that can affect them. But I don't think it works on these floating balls. So, I mean, we'll check. We'll see how it does. I mean, baseline, we're doing a lot of fire damage, right? So if we look at our setup here, it's nothing fancy, man. I don't know. It's just status effects. Status effects are really strong. It's it doesn't take much to make it good. I mean, Ritualist plus some bonuses to it, and you're set. That's it. You don't need much, especially if you have Sparkfire. Ritualist and Sparkfire on its own is pretty much a build. I don't know what else more to say about it, right? So, Ritualist, Medic. I went Medic for Shield. I was doing some other, Relic stuff earlier, but ignore that part. You can kind of just swap this around to whatever you want. I chose Medic. Miasma, obviously, status effects, really strong. Because I leaned into fire, I went Talisman of the Sun, increasing that fire damage, burning damage. The wired inhibitor we've talked about, slowing down enemies. Because I'm applying so many status effects, the Black Spindle works amazing because, we're constantly applying and refreshing those status effects, which means we can get a lot of health regen going on here. Then we've got the Firestone again, increasing that fire damage, and I've got the Red Ring of Death that duplicates some of the things. Now, all that being said, some other options you could kind of go with. You could go with the Singed Ring, which will increase all the damage dealt to burning enemies by, 12% now? Yeah, 12%. You could do that. Again, if you're mixing in more status effects and you're not going with just fire, throw in the Ahanai Crystal, and then at that point, swap out the Talisman of the Sun, go with the Energized Neck Coil, which is always just complete top tier. You could easily switch into Fragrant Thorn so that you're getting the exposed thing on there, which, I mean, shoot, actually, maybe for the boss, that's just what we'll do. We'll do the Fragrant Thorn stuff. Let's do that. Okay, here we go. Pretty easy switch. I just put on the Iodine Crystal instead of the Burning Stone, Firestone, whatever it is. So we get more bonus damage for every negative status effect. We've got the Fragrant Thorn instead of the Talisman of the Sun. So now all our status effect damage is increased by 20%. We get 4 more on there than when they get exposed, which is cool. This last one I was swapping around a little bit. I kind of want to try this one out. I don't know how much I'll like it, but because we have exposed going on, we can increase mod generation and mod damage by 5% and then double it against exposed targets, which should be the guy all the time. The Sparkfire Shotgun is going to be doing, fire damage, fetid wounds, so it does the corrosive as well. And then I put in the Voltaic Rondor for a lightning effect, something that should charge up pretty quickly and be able to just kind of launch out there. Will I be able to hit the boss with it because there are a bunch of floating orbs? We'll see. I'm going to swap you for... I guess I could do the Krellax, I suppose. Why not? Now, I will mention this. We're going to switch off the Hellfire just because I'm not going to be able to hit crap with it. But I like the Time Wave with it because Time Wave increases the ranged damage by 20% to enemies afflicted by slow. And so just by using the Flamethrower effect on the enemies, just basic fire is automatically applying slow because they're burning. So it's 20% more range damage. Now, that's not a lot because I'm not focused on the range damage aspect of it. Instead, the status effect is a little bit better. So, honestly, a different mutator would be kind of different or better. But you could use a time wave with the Sparkfire as well and that ring because then every shot is applying the stat effect, which slows them. And so you're doing 20% more range damage. But we're not focused on the range damage, so it's kind of... Okay, let's go to town. Drain and Spiteful. Just lob that out there. Start hitting him. We got 2-3 status effects on him now. Where's the ball? There we go. We got the 4 status effects now, I think. Maybe. We'll go ahead and just send out the Nano Swarm. It's probably going to fly out and get all the little extra adds, but you know what? Whatever. Lightning Orb. There we go. There's some decent damage. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty reasonable, right? How is he shooting without his little ball in him? I don't know. Boom. Send him. No. Lob that out there. I should get both of them. Let's just go ahead and activate the Miasma as well. There we go. Boom. Boom. Come on. Break, please. I'm just gonna... Why did I use it? I don't know. I will say this about, you get all the numbers in this fight thanks to the freaking Ritualist Vial perk thing, whatever, and that's pretty satisfying. And now we just kind of let the status effects do their thing, dude. Like, I don't have all the statuses I should, but we can do this. Boom. Pop you out there. Let's hit him with one of these. Pow. Hit him with one of these, because it's that one. Use our relic now, though. Boom. Oh, look at it. Another lightning orb. Whoop. Yeah. There you go. It'll do it. Wired inhibitor is not necessary to make a weapon setup go with the Fragrant Thorn, right? What we could have done instead was use a Sparkfire Shotgun. Instead of fetid wounds, we put twisting wounds on there so that we get fire and twisting, or fire and bleed. And then our Krellax, we hit him with that. It does lightning and corrosive. And so there's 4 status effects right there. But this does allow us to swap out something else in there to fill the 4 status effect need, or just gives us that better option whenever we're dealing with a boss that's going to have immunities or enemies, right? Because the bad thing was the DLC for Yesha, the Lost Kingdom, a lot of the stone guys are immune to bleed. And so for me, that was one of the big status effects I was relying on. And so when I didn't have access to bleed, I couldn't utilize all of that. So that was very frustrated. I guess I never saved this loadout. That's pretty much it, though. As far as some other random things for the build, taking the... actually, my traits are completely all over the place because I was doing something else with the setup. So, frankly, your traits don't really matter. I mean, they matter, but they don't matter, right? This is on Apocalypse, by the way, not because it's an Apocalypse-worthy build or anything like that. It's just to show you how it does there. Obviously, it works fine, but, Amplitude... Amplitude is going to be the MVP here to work with the Ritualist, Prime Perk, as well as Miasma, and some of the other like mod effects that you're probably using, right? And then Siphoner, just because we've got so many status effects going on. And then from there, man, like, I do what you want. Even my fragments are probably all over the place. Status effect damage, I did Whip and Spread for the Sparkfire, and then a Health bonus, and then Prism. I'm just leveling up this one right now because that's the one I want to work on. It has nothing to do with status effects or anything like that. So it's, you know, it's just extra icing on the cake, right? So there's a lot of flexibility. It's just baseline status effects, ritualist things are just really strong. So it's going to give you a lot more flexibility in how you want to do some of the details. But I'm going to try this one a little bit more. I'm kind of curious to see how it feels. Oh, you know, slow with the Voltaic Rondor is probably fun too, because that's just a big lightning ball of damage and slow. And look at how they all have exposed now. Yeah. Honestly, so I guess that one's probably better when you've got like a big boss, somebody who's gonna take a beating more, you know? No thank you. Bloom. Oh no. Oh, the slow. Yeah, so I feel like that that ring is probably better off on like a boss where you're gonna have like more time to deal damage to them while they're exposed, so you can actually get the damage bonus and the mod generation. For all these little guys, it doesn't matter. Like, I would actually be better off using, like, if I'm actually interested in mod power generation, using the Stone of Malevolence, just so elemental damage is giving me more mod power. So maybe I can pull out that Voltaic Rondor just a bit more. Also, I'd be remiss to mention, you know, Nebula with the stupid wired inhibitor. I mean, Nebula is just really strong too. It's just really strong. But because it's constantly applying status effects, means enemies are just constantly slowed while getting torn apart by nano machines, which is a horrific fate. I mean, also the burning one is a horrific fate too. Like, can you imagine microscopic machines tearing you apart while you're just like basically stuck in a kind of like slow motion? Absolutely awful. Oh no, a rat monster. What am I gonna do? Uh-oh. Oh no. Slow. It's ridiculous. What have you got for me? Spiteful Skullcracker and Shocking. I hate Shocking. Shocking is always not great for me. Oh no. Oh, scary. Uh-oh. Come get some. Did it work? Nope. Howie. I'm sorry, what? Oops. That's what I get. Oh, I don't know why I didn't think about mentioning this too, but there is a new trait with the DLC Perception that increases the effects of slow and stuff. And I say slow and stuff, slow and haste, right? Haste on you, slow on enemies. So, yeah, you could totally put points in there and have it be like absolutely brutal on them if you wanted to, right? I should probably go down there and check for Mythril ore now. Oh, God dang it, I don't want to do that. Yeah, you could easily do that. I'm not too worried about it because baseline slow is plenty good enough on its own, right? Any more? Ah! Alright, it's been 15 minutes. I don't remember what I was saying anymore. So, yeah, guess that's the end of the video. Thanks for checking it out. Take care.